The lost ability to make vitamin C. Imagine if you never had to worry about eating oranges or taking vitamin C supplements. Sounds pretty convenient, right? Well, believe it or not, our ancient ancestors lived that way millions of years ago. Most mammals, from your pet cat to wild tigers and even mice, produce vitamin C naturally inside their bodies. But somewhere in our evolutionary past, humans lost this ability. The culprit? A single broken gene called GULO, guanylactone oxidase. This gene is responsible for creating an enzyme that helps convert glucose into vitamin C, an essential nutrient for survival. Scientists believe that around 61 million years ago, one of our distant primate ancestors experienced a genetic mutation that turned off this function. But why didn't this mutation kill us off? Well, these early primates were already consuming vitamin C-rich fruits in their diets, so the ability to produce it internally wasn't a matter of life and death, at least not back then. Fast forward to today, and that genetic change still affects us. Unlike most mammals, we have to consume vitamin C to stay healthy. If we don't, we develop scurvy, a disease that once plagued sailors who lacked fresh fruits on long voyages. Even today, cases of scurvy still pop up in people with extremely poor diets. Interestingly, humans aren't the only ones with this problem. Guinea pigs, certain bats, and some birds have also lost this function. If this gene had stayed intact, we wouldn't need to worry about citrus fruits or vitamin supplements at all. Instead, we're stuck relying on oranges, peppers, and leafy greens just to keep our immune system strong. It's a strange quirk of evolution, a simple broken gene that left us vulnerable in ways other animals aren't. The disappearance of body fur. Take a moment and look at your arm. Compared to a chimpanzee, it's clear that something changed. Humans are oddly naked compared to other primates. But why? At some point in our evolutionary history, we lost the thick body fur that once protected our ancestors. This wasn't just a random change. It had to serve an important purpose. One of the leading theories is called the running and cooling hypothesis. Early humans in Africa were becoming more active, running long distances to hunt or escape predators. Thick fur traps heat, which isn't ideal in a hot climate. Losing body hair allowed for better sweat evaporation, helping us stay cool while moving. Unlike furry animals that have to pant to regulate their temperature, humans evolved to sweat more efficiently, something that makes us uniquely suited for endurance activities like running. But there's another interesting theory. Parasites. Thick fur creates the perfect environment for lice, fleas, and ticks to thrive. By shedding most of our hair, humans may have reduced infestations, making life a little less itchy and a lot healthier. This might have been especially important as humans began living in groups. Interestingly, while we lost most of our fur, we didn't become completely hairless. Our heads remained covered to protect against the sun, and many people still have noticeable body hair, especially on the arms, chest, and legs. The distribution of body hair even varies between individuals and populations, possibly due to climate adaptations over thousands of years. Ironically, even though we lost fur for evolutionary advantages, we now spend billions of dollars every year on clothing, blankets, and heaters to keep ourselves warm. We even artificially remove body hair for aesthetic reasons, waxing, shaving, or using lasers to undo what little hair we still have. Evolution gave us smooth skin, but modern humans still find ways to fight against it. Funny how that works, right? The loss of a stronger bite. Ever notice how your dog, cat, or even a chimpanzee can bite down much harder than you? That's because humans lost a gene that once gave us powerful jaw muscles. Millions of years ago, our ancestors had much stronger bites, similar to those of modern apes. These powerful jaws were necessary for chewing tough, raw foods, hard roots, raw meat, and anything else they could scavenge. But about 2.4 million years ago, a key gene called MYH16 stopped functioning properly. This gene is responsible for producing strong chewing muscles, and when it deactivated, it caused human jaw muscles to shrink. At first, this might sound like a bad thing. A weaker bite means less ability to chew hard foods, right? But this change actually set the stage for something even more important: a bigger brain. Strong jaw muscles take up a lot of space in the skull, limiting how large the brain can grow. By reducing jaw size and muscle thickness, early humans could evolve larger skulls with more room for brain expansion. This allowed us to develop advanced thinking skills, better problem-solving abilities, and eventually complex societies. In other words, we traded bite force for intelligence, a deal that shaped our entire species. Of course, this change also meant we had to rely more on cooking and food preparation. Unlike animals that can eat raw meat with ease, humans struggle with tough, uncooked foods. Cooking softens food, making it easier to chew and digest, which in turn allowed for further evolution. Today, our bite force is significantly weaker than that of our primate relatives, but we don't really need it. We use tools, knives, and fire to do the hard work for us. The days of crushing food with brute force are long gone, replaced by the comforts of modern eating habits. The vanishing of a gripping foot. Now, let's talk about something you probably never think about: your feet. If you look at a chimpanzee's foot, you'll notice something strange. Their big toe sticks out like a thumb. This allows them to grip branches and move through trees with ease. Millions of years ago, our ancestors had this same ability. Imagine a world where your feet could grasp objects just as easily as your hands. It sounds wild, but that was once our reality. So, why did we lose this feature? It all comes down to bipedalism, walking upright. As humans evolved to travel on two legs, gripping feet became less useful. Over time, our toes shortened, our feet flattened, and our big toe aligned with the others. This change made walking and running more efficient, allowing humans to cover long distances without needing to climb trees for safety. But the trade-off? We lost our ability to grasp objects with our feet. Even today, some people have more flexible feet than others, but for most of us, trying to pick something up with our toes feels awkward and unnatural. However, some primates still have opposable toes, giving them an edge in tree climbing. Our distant relatives, the chimpanzees, orangutans, and bonobos, still use their feet as an extra pair of hands. Meanwhile, we humans are stuck with flat, stiff feet that are great for walking but useless for grabbing things. Evolution made its choice, and while our feet aren't as versatile as they used to be, they're perfect for long-distance travel. Still, it's fun to imagine what life would be like if we never lost that gripping power. Would we still climb trees? Would we wear shoes differently? Either way, our ancestors left tree life behind, and our feet followed suit. The shrinking of our sense of smell. Have you ever watched a dog sniff around and wondered why humans don't have the same superpowered sense of smell? Believe it or not, our ancestors used to rely much more on scent, just like animals do today. But somewhere along the way, humans lost a big part of this ability. Our sense of smell is far weaker than that of most mammals, and the reason lies in our olfactory genes, the ones responsible for detecting different scents. Humans actually have about 400 working olfactory receptor genes, which sounds like a lot until you compare it to dogs, who have over 800, or rats, who have more than 1,200. What happened? Well, as we evolved better vision and more advanced brains, we started relying on sight and sound much more than smell. Early primates may have lived in dense forests where smell was useful for finding food and detecting danger. But once humans became more upright and moved into open landscapes, vision took over as our primary sense. Another reason for our weaker sense of smell is our flat faces. Many animals, like wolves and bears, have long snouts packed with sensory receptors. Humans, on the other hand, have much shorter nasal passages, which means less room for those scent-detecting nerves. Over generations, we simply stopped needing a strong sense of smell as much as other species did. But even though we lost a lot of our smelling ability, it's not completely gone. Studies show that certain people still have stronger than average scent detection, especially when it comes to recognizing pheromones, the chemical signals we give off. And while we may never match a bloodhound, our noses still play a huge role in things like taste, memory, and emotions. Ever caught a whiff of something that instantly reminded you of childhood? That's your olfactory system at work. It may not be as sharp as it once was, but it still has its moments. The loss of a protective third eyelid. Imagine blinking, but instead of just your normal eyelids, you had a third one, a thin, transparent membrane that swept across your eye like a windshield wiper. It might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but in reality, many animals, including birds, reptiles, and even some mammals, still have this extra eyelid. It's called a nictitating membrane, and humans actually used to have one too. If you look closely at the inner corner of your eye, you'll see a small pinkish bump. This is called the plica semilunaris, and it's the last remaining trace of this lost feature. Millions of years ago, our distant ancestors had a fully functional third eyelid that helped keep their eyes moist, protected them from dust and debris, and even improved vision underwater. So, why did humans lose it? As we evolved and adapted to life on land, we simply didn't need it anymore. Unlike animals that hunt, swim, or move through rough environments where eye protection is crucial, early humans relied more on their hands and reflexes to shield their eyes. Over time, the nictitating membrane shrank, leaving behind only a tiny remnant that serves no real function today. Some primates, like lemurs, still have a slightly more developed version, but for us, it's just a biological leftover, a reminder that evolution doesn't always erase things completely. So next time you rub the corner of your eye, remember that tiny bump once had a much bigger job to do. The weakening of our bite, thanks to cooking. Have you ever noticed how your dog can chomp down on a raw steak, but you'd probably struggle to do the same? That's because humans not only lost the ability to bite powerfully, but we also developed weaker teeth compared to our ancestors. This is all thanks to one of humanity's greatest discoveries: cooking. Before fire and tools, our ancestors had to chew through raw meat, tough plants, and fibrous roots. This required strong jaws and large teeth to crush food efficiently. But when humans figured out how to cook, everything changed. Cooking softened food, making it easier to chew and digest. As a result, there was less pressure on our teeth to stay strong and durable. Over thousands of generations, our teeth became smaller, our jaw muscles weakened, and our skulls changed shape to accommodate this new way of eating. This shift had other side effects too. Many modern humans now have crooked teeth, impacted wisdom teeth, and overcrowded mouths, all because our jaws shrank faster than our teeth could adapt. Meanwhile, other primates still have large, powerful teeth designed for raw diets. If we had never discovered fire and cooking, we might still have the massive molars and thick skulls of our ancient relatives. But instead, we traded brute chewing power for a softer, more efficient way of eating. So the next time you enjoy a warm meal, remember, you're eating with an evolved, weaker jaw. It's a small price to pay for the convenience of cooked food. The loss of night vision. Ever wonder why you struggle to see in the dark while cats, owls, and even some of our primate cousins can navigate nighttime with ease? That's because humans lost their night vision as we evolved. Our ancient ancestors once had sharper low-light vision, but over time, we traded that ability for something else: color vision. Most nocturnal animals have larger eyes, special reflective layers, like the tapetum lucidum in cats, and a higher concentration of rod cells, which help them see in dim light. But humans? We moved in a different direction. As we became more active during the day, our eyes developed more cone cells instead, allowing us to see a broader range of colors. This trade-off helped early humans detect ripe fruits, recognize threats, and communicate better through visual cues, but it also meant we lost the ability to see clearly at night. Interestingly, some primates still retain better night vision than we do, especially those that are more active at dusk and dawn. Meanwhile, modern humans struggle in the dark, relying on artificial light to function at night. But even though we can't see well in pitch black, our eyes are still remarkably adaptive. They can adjust to dim conditions over time. If you've ever been in a dark room for a while and noticed your vision slowly improving, that's your rod cells kicking in, trying their best to compensate for what evolution took away. So while we might never regain true night vision, we've adapted in other ways. Flashlights, street lamps, and phone screens now light up our nights instead. The vanishing of our tail. Ever wonder why we have a tailbone but no tail? Well, millions of years ago, our distant ancestors actually had fully formed tails, just like monkeys do today. It wasn't just for fun. Tails helped with balance, movement, and communication. But as humans evolved, something strange happened. Our tails disappeared. Why did we lose them? It all comes down to walking upright. When our ancestors started standing on two legs, a tail became less useful. Other primates use their tails for balance while swinging through trees, but once humans moved to the ground, balancing on 2 feet required a different set of muscles, not a tail. Over time, the tail shrunk and became what we now call the coccyx, or tailbone, a tiny fused set of bones at the base of your spine. But here's where it gets even weirder. Some babies are still born with small tails. This is called a vestigial tail, and while it's rare, it proves that our genes still have the blueprint for growing one. In some cases, these tails even have bones, muscles, and nerves, though they are usually removed shortly after birth. Even though we no longer need a tail, our body still remembers it. The coccyx still serves as an anchor for certain muscles, and during fetal development, all human embryos briefly have a tail before it disappears. So, while we might not be swinging from trees anymore, a little piece of our past is still hidden inside us, right at the base of our spine. The reduction of our climbing strength. Imagine if you could climb trees as easily as a chimpanzee, gripping branches, swinging effortlessly, and pulling yourself up with pure upper body strength. Well, believe it or not, our ancestors used to be able to do exactly that. Early primates were built for life in the trees, with strong arms, flexible wrists, and powerful grip strength. But as humans became more ground-dwelling, something changed. We slowly lost muscle mass and raw strength, particularly in our arms and upper body. Chimps today are estimated to be 3 to 5 times stronger than the average human when it comes to pulling and gripping. Part of this is due to differences in muscle fibers. Chimpanzees have a higher proportion of fast-twitch fibers, which give them explosive power. Humans, on the other hand, evolved more endurance-focused muscles, making us better suited for long-distance walking and running instead of short bursts of climbing power. Another reason for our weakened grip and reduced climbing ability is our evolving brain. As we developed tools, weapons, and problem-solving skills, brute strength became less critical for survival. Instead of climbing to escape predators, early humans started using weapons, teamwork, and fire to defend themselves. But traces of our old climbing abilities still exist. Some people retain extraordinary grip strength, and others can train their bodies to be better climbers. Our hands and fingers remain highly dexterous, which is why we're capable of performing delicate tasks, writing, crafting, and even playing musical instruments. So, while we may never match a chimpanzee in a pull-up contest, our hands are still one of our greatest evolutionary tools. The loss of webbed fingers and toes. Ever noticed that your fingers and toes look a little webbed when you spread them apart in water? That's because during early fetal development, All humans actually have fully webbed hands and feet. But as we grow, that webbing disappears due to a process called apoptosis, a kind of programmed cell death that separates our fingers and toes. So why did our ancestors even have webbed hands and feet in the first place? Scientists believe that early primates, and possibly even some pre-human species, spent a lot of time in swamps, rivers, or coastal environments where webbed digits would have made swimming more efficient. Some researchers even suggest that an aquatic phase in human evolution could explain why we still have certain water-friendly traits, like the ability to hold our breath longer than most land mammals and our instinctive swimming abilities at birth. But as we adapted to life on land, webbed hands and feet became less necessary. Over time, natural selection favored individuals with separate fingers, since they were better at grasping tools, climbing, and performing delicate tasks. That's why our fingers and toes separate before birth, leaving only a faint trace of our watery past. However, some people are still born with partial webbing between their fingers or toes, a condition called syndactyly. It's a rare genetic occurrence, but serves as a reminder that our bodies still carry the echoes of our evolutionary journey. So the next time you stretch your fingers or paddle your feet in the water, just remember, you were once a little more like a frog than you think. The disappearance of large canine teeth. Have you ever looked at a dog, a lion, or even a chimpanzee and noticed their large, sharp canine teeth? These long, pointed teeth are designed for tearing meat, intimidating rivals, and even self-defense. But humans? Our canines are tiny and dull in comparison. So what happened? Millions of years ago, our ancestors had larger, more prominent canine teeth, much like other primates. These teeth played a huge role in fighting for dominance, especially among males, who used them to threaten rivals and compete for mates. But as human societies evolved, brute force became less important, and social structures, cooperation, and intelligence became more valuable. This shift reduced the need for physical aggression, making large canines unnecessary. Another reason for our shrinking canines is our changing diet. Early primates needed sharp teeth to tear through raw meat, hard plants, and tough roots. But as humans developed tools and cooking, food became softer and easier to chew, eliminating the need for long, sharp teeth. Instead, our teeth evolved to be flatter and more suited for grinding and chewing, helping us process a wider range of foods. However, if you look closely, you'll notice that men still tend to have slightly larger canines than women. This is a leftover trait from the days when teeth played a role in competition and mating. Though they no longer serve their original purpose, our small canines are still a reminder that at one point in history, our ancestors bared their teeth to survive. The loss of a stronger sense of taste. Ever wonder why some animals like cats and dogs seem to have a more intense reaction to food smells than humans do? That's because humans have actually lost a significant portion of their sense of taste over time. Our ancestors once relied heavily on their tongues to detect bitterness, sourness, sweetness, and umami in food, not just for pleasure, but for survival. Long ago, being able to taste bitterness was a life-or-death advantage. Many toxic plants and spoiled foods have a naturally bitter taste, and our ancestors needed sharp taste buds to detect them. But as humans evolved, started cooking their food, and developed agriculture, we began eating safer, more predictable diets. This meant our taste receptors became less sensitive, especially to bitter flavors. Today, some people still have stronger taste perception than others, a trait known as being a super taster. These individuals have more taste buds and find certain foods, like coffee or dark leafy greens, overwhelmingly bitter. Another interesting thing? Humans lost the ability to taste certain amino acids that other mammals can detect. Cats, for example, cannot taste sweetness at all, but they have an incredibly strong ability to taste umami, savory flavors. Meanwhile, humans lost the ability to detect certain compounds that might have once been useful for identifying nutrient-rich foods in the wild. So, while we still enjoy food, our tongues aren't as powerful as they used to be. Evolution traded extreme taste sensitivity for more dietary flexibility, allowing us to eat a wider range of foods. And now, we've turned taste into a luxury, using spices, artificial flavorings, and endless culinary creativity to make up for what we lost. The disappearance of larger nostrils and air filtration features. Take a deep breath. Ever notice how your nose isn't as large or complex as some other animals? That's because humans once had larger nostrils, thicker nasal passages, and more advanced air filtration features. These were necessary when early humans lived in dusty, cold, or humid environments, but over time we lost much of this ability. If you compare human noses to those of animals like dogs, camels, or even Neanderthals, you'll notice huge differences. Neanderthals, for example, had wider, more pronounced noses that helped them breathe in cold, dry climates. Their nasal passages warmed and humidified the air before it reached their lungs, helping them survive Ice Age conditions. Meanwhile, modern humans evolved flatter, smaller noses that are less specialized for extreme environments. This change had consequences. Many people today suffer from sinus issues, allergies, and breathing difficulties simply because our noses are not as effective at filtering and processing air as they used to be. While some ethnic groups still have larger nostrils adapted to hot climates, and others have narrower noses adapted to cold environments, the overall function of the human nose has diminished. Our respiratory systems are also less efficient at filtering out bacteria, dust, and pollution compared to other mammals. That's one reason why modern humans rely so much on air conditioning, humidifiers, and medical treatments for sinus problems. So, while our noses may still do their job, they're nowhere near as powerful as they once were. The loss of extra protective fat and insulating fur. Ever stepped outside in the winter and immediately felt freezing cold? If so, blame evolution. Humans once had a layer of insulating fat and thicker body hair that helped protect us from harsh climates, but we lost most of it over time. Early humans, much like bears, seals, and other mammals, had denser fat layers beneath their skin. This wasn't just for energy storage. It acted as a thermal insulator, helping to retain body heat in cold weather. On top of that, our ancestors had thicker body hair, which provided an extra layer of warmth. But as humans migrated and began wearing clothes, natural selection favored less body hair and reduced fat insulation. Instead of relying on our biology, we started using animal skins, fire, and shelter to regulate temperature. Interestingly, some remnants of our old insulating abilities still exist. Ever noticed goosebumps when you're cold? That's a leftover reflex from the days when our body hair would stand on end to trap heat, just like what happens with a scared cat or a puffed-up bird in winter. Some groups of people, especially those from colder climates, still retain a slightly thicker fat layer, which provides better cold resistance. But overall, our species has outsourced temperature regulation to clothing, heaters, and technology. So the next time you bundle up in a thick coat or sit by a heater, just remember, your ancestors didn't have those luxuries, but they also didn't need them quite as much. The shrinking of our digestive system. Have you ever wondered why you can't digest raw meat, tough plants, or certain fibrous foods as well as other animals? That's because over time our digestive system has shrunk, making it less capable of processing unprocessed foods. Our ancient ancestors had larger stomachs and longer intestines, which helped them break down tough, fibrous plants and raw meats. But as humans discovered cooking, food became easier to digest, which led to a reduction in gut size. Cooking pre-digests food by softening it and breaking down complex nutrients, meaning our intestines no longer had to work as hard. This change had major effects on human evolution. A smaller gut freed up more energy for brain development, since digestion is one of the most energy-demanding processes in the body. In other words, our ancestors traded gut size for bigger brains, a deal that made us the intelligent species we are today. However, this also made humans more dependent on cooked food. Unlike animals that can eat raw meat and fibrous plants without issues, we struggle with raw diets. Many raw vegetables require cooking to release their nutrients, and uncooked meat often harbors dangerous bacteria that we can't tolerate. Another downside? Digestive issues. The modern human diet has changed faster than our gut has adapted, leading to problems like lactose intolerance, gluten sensitivity, and digestive disorders. Many people today rely on probiotics and specialized diets just to maintain gut health, something our ancient ancestors never had to worry about. So, while we may have won in terms of brain power, we definitely lost when it comes to digestive strength. That's why cooking remains one of the most important human inventions. It literally shaped our biology.